Before the break, we had just spotted a large male snowshoe hare, a big sucker, at least 15 pounds, and we've followed him to what we think is his burrow. Blakey in a parka, heavy gloves and silly winter hat addressed the TV audience, pointing to a snow-covered mound below a fantastically gnarled white-capped tree. Blakey, now the host of the Snowshoe Hare Nature Special, paused when he saw a 10-inch high mailbox outside the burrow. He looked to the camera crew, quickly losing his smile. He then bent down to look into the burrow and continued his professional TV enthusiasm. Let's see if he's... Yes, I see him. He's definitely in there. Hold on. Blakey became frazzled by what he saw, stood up, and looked to the camera crew again for help, asking, "Where's Bill? We might need our producer, Bill." He looked to the camera operator and the sound man. "No, Bill." He looked to the burrow again. "Here, give me that." The bulky camera was handed over, and Blakey pointed the lens in the burrow hole. "Where's the infrared?" Night vision flipped on, and the burrow became an unpleasant monochrome of green and black. The burrow contained a tiny living room set, a chest of drawers, an armoire, a table and chairs, and even a chiming grandfather clock all stood on a root-entwined dirt floor. A grave, mature voice asked from somewhere, "Where's my iron? Has someone moved it? Mary, that bitch, she's always moving my things." A rabbit appeared, not a snowshoe hare. It was standing upright, dressed in a fine shirt, tie, and suspender pants. There was a large blood stain on his white shirt, which read as black in infrared. The rabbit unwrapped something from an embroidered cloth. Then there was the sound of a gun cylinder loading. "Never me, never, not alive." The rabbit cocked the hammer and raised the service revolver to its own head. A topping for this. A proper topping. He fixed his desperate glare directly on the camera. "Don't let them get you, brother." Pop! The muzzle flare caused a blinding flash in infrared, and the flashes wouldn't stop in Blakey's head. He was still alive, but something had been knocked loose. He could barely remember bringing Harry in, or much of anything before sitting in Susan's veterinarian waiting room, with an ice pack on his ballooning face. Susan was talking, but Blakey only heard muffled honks. Blakey's lip was split wide like a sausage and pulsing in sync with his head. He fingered it, and Susan pushed his hand away like a mother and a child's skinned knee. The shred of a yellow fast food napkin, presumably from his car, was still stuck to the clotted gash on his hand. Staring at her, holding the ice pack to his head, Blakey focused and finally deciphered her words. "What did you do to that dog?" Blakey shifted the ice pack, chasing the flashing loop of pain. Susan repeated after no response. "What did you do to that dog?" Blakey finally answered, "Is he going to be okay?" "Okay. He probably won't last the night. What did you do to him, Arthur?" She took the ice pack, squeezed it to reactivate, and gave it back. "Did you beat that dog? Tell me right now, or I'm calling the police." Blakey stared at her a moment longer, thinking intensely before he gave her his copy of Through the Looking Glass. "Read?" "What?" She was pissed, not in the slightest mood for his childish secrecy. She wanted the truth, all of it. "Just read. I'll be right back." He left without another word. Susan scoffed, but after a few skeptical looks, she opened the book to the most dog-eared page and read with a loud, disgusted voice, hoping he could hear from outside. In another moment, Alice was through the glass and had jumped lightly down into the looking-glass room. The very first thing she did was to look whether there was a fire in the fireplace, and she was quite pleased to find that there was a real one, blazing away as brightly as the one she had left behind. "So I shall be as warm here as I was in the old room," thought Alice. "Warmer, in fact, because there'll be no one here to scold me away from the fire. Oh, what fun it'll be when they see me through the glass in here and can't get at me. Blakey kicked the door open and dragged in one of the shapes. The beast was tied with an extension cord, and it squirmed in a terrible frenzy, trying to bite, struggling for freedom, a blur of frantic writhing. It loosed a blood-curdling howl, and Susan shrieked, dropped the book, and instinctively retreated behind the reception counter. "Oh my God, what in the hell is that?" Blakey calmly answered. That is one of the bastards that chewed up my back and my arm, broke my nose, tore open my leg, fractured 4 ribs, my skull, 4 fingers. They caused the whole grab bag of hurt over the last year, and they're the things that did that to Harry. Blakey kicked the shape. It made a chilling sound, the howl of 100 unpleasant nightmares vibrating together. The dogs in back joined in. "They're also the ones that took Alice." Blakey pulled his .38 revolver from his jacket. "Whoa! What are you doing?" Susan's hands went up. Blakey unloaded into the shape without pause. Susan covered her ears from the deafening sound. The shape's howling stopped, but the dogs in the back continued. "So, now you know. Feel better? Or worse?" Blakey reloaded the gun. Susan was speechless and bug-eyed. She looked at the shape and its pool of blood and then vomited into the reception's wastebasket. It took more than 20 minutes for Susan to calm down and for her scientific mind to take control. She bent over the shape, now on one of her exam tables. She pried open its elongated snout. Amazingly, the jaw flexed for about 1.5 feet, threaded with thick ribbons of saliva. There was a repellent odor, different from any rotted-tooth canine she had ever examined. It was a near-chemical smell. It was not organic nor biological. It strongly resembled turpentine and ammonia. They could both hear the leather-stretch sound of its giant jaw muscles flexing when she forced the mouth wider to see further. Amazing! She was in total childish wonderment. Wouldn't get too close. "Huh?" She looked at Blakey. "Not dead," Blakey instructed while bandaging his hand with proper supplies. "But—" She looked at the bullet holes. "Nope, can't shoot 'em," he assured her. When Susan leaned in to listen for breath, the shape snorted and its jaw snapped shut with the force of a bear trap. She jumped back. "Don't worry, it won't come around fully for about another 5-10 minutes." Blakey explained it as if it were a finicky car. Susan stuttered, not knowing at all what to say or what question to ask first. "Bullets, fire, carve them, run them over. You think you killed them because it was so hard to kill, but the moment you turn your back, they're gone. Or worse, they're not. Only thing that keeps them dead is this." Blakey held up his trench club. Susan looked at the terrifying weapon blankly. Her mind was blown. "I don't understand." "What?" Blakey asked. "Everything, all, any of it. What is it? Where did it come from? This took Alice? What does it want with a child? I mean, these aren't carnivore teeth. They barely look like teeth. They look like some twisted funhouse concept of teeth." Blakey threw the question back at her. "What does any horrible thing want with a child?" "I don't really like to think about that part, right? That's the part that makes you go crazy." Susan offered some skepticism. "What did the police say?" "Police? They won't see it. What would you believe, monsters in the attic? Or greasy perverts and the everyday evil of men?" "What do you mean? I see it. Right now, lying there on my table." "'Cause you read some of the book. And 'cause you still have some kid left. If you read, if you have imagination, if you're ready to believe, you still have some of the child's mind left in you, then you can see. At least that's what I figure." Blakey held out the copy of Through the Looking Glass. "That's not the way things work," she protested. "'Snot? Says who?" Blakey defended. "Says the world, science, physics, biology. This is obviously some undiscovered—" "Undiscovered what? Don't go taxonomic on me, Doc. I just showed you a monster." I looked in all the encyclopedias. You can't make it nice and flat. It is obvious Blakey had rehearsed this speech for a long time. She looked at the beast on the table, truly a thing of nightmares, worse than dinosaurs, deep-sea creatures, or even all the legendary cryptids. It was wholly unnatural, yet real, and in front of her. You have to show the police. Blakey related the first and only time he did just that. He told her that he had persuaded a couple officers to come to his truck outside their station. It had been hard. They were very cautious. Lifting off the sheet, as if a great magic trick, their reaction was completely unexpected. They saw nothing on the truck bed, a handful of dirt, a smear of grime that could have come from anywhere, but nothing else. It was the worst sort of disappearing act. The look of pity on their faces was maddening. He had slain a flesh and blood monster, just like the one that took his daughter, but these men didn't see it right in front of them. These officers, whose job it was to find Alice, could not and would not see it. It had gotten ugly after that, his frustration exploding into violence. Doctors were called with endless documentation and observation. The pity continued, enough of it to choke a nun. It contributed heartily to the downfall of things with his wife. Blakey began to feel guilty for sharing his horror-filled world with Susan. She didn't need a tour of the hell he has lived with for so long. This is only the second one I haven't killed. They don't exactly like being kept. And of course, after a month in the nut shop, raving about the boogie monster who took my daughter, I learned to keep a lid on it. People like to believe in the impossible, but they don't want it to come true. Just then, the shape woke up, swiped at Susan and opened her arm. She screamed and recoiled. Blakey sprung up and finished the monster off with one brutal swing of the club to the head, spattering blood in Susan's face. She took a pale turn for the worse. Oh, Lord.